Well, I'm excited, hopefully to move on to better news, but I'm excited to bring on our guest. This is a really special guest to me. We have with us today or tonight, Richard Hooker. He is General Secretary of Teamsters Local 623, the best union leader on this side or the other side of the Mississippi, as he likes to say. I've got to know him over these last few years. We do a lot of work in Philly together, trying to build the labor movement, build all kinds of, build any kind of movement that's going on. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
And I thought I would start. I saw you're in Alabama now, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
And you're checking out
vacation.
Right. There's also
beautiful snowy Alabama.
I still can't believe it.
And I don't know if you went there also. I don't know if you've been checking out the Amazon stuff. If that I don't know. So I mean, tell me what you saw, what you've been seeing regarding Amazon.
A lot of people here are, they're excited, they're anxious, because this is something, brand new. You're talking about going up against a company who's just anti-union through and through. I heard some of the stories before I got here about how Amazon had the traffic lights, stuck on green so no one can stop and talk or get literature about what's going on. And lo and behold, there's no stopping. They got cops out there, lights are green. You just keep moving. But, there is a radio campaign here where, some of the local radio stations, they promote the union and they're telling the people that work out there, hey, vote union yes. And they're telling them when they get their ballot, send it right back in the mail and vote. And that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to those workers voting. Mm-hmm. That's just like anything else. It comes down to voting.
Right. And also I saw you visited some like civil rights memorials, museums. I don't know if we want to talk about that. I saw you at the Montgomery bus boycott.
We always hear that civil rights and workers' rights are the same. And to be here, to have some sort of experience with that, you can actually see, why there is a correlation between the two, civil rights and workers' rights. Walking across that bridge, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, man, I'm gonna tell you something, man, that was emotional because you read about it, you saw movies about it, people walking because they just wanted the opportunity to vote. They wanted respect. They wanted the dignity of human personality. They wanted all those things, and they were willing to sacrifice their own lives just to get that. And here we are now. We're still fighting the same thing. It's a little different, but we're still fighting the same thing. And then here, we went to Montgomery yesterday, and it just brought to my mind. Just imagine if working people were to pool their resources like they did for that bus boycott. They walked, they carpooled, hot, raining, whatever the case may be. They would not get on that bus. And it wasn't just because of you didn't want to sit in the back. It was about respect. And what if working people would do something like that? What if we say, I'm tired of the company dominating me. I'm tired of my union leaders not sticking up for me. You know what? I've had enough. Let's work together and get out of this situation. I'm telling you, that would be something. That would really be something.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen soon.
It has to. It has to, Paul. Man, listen, it has to.
Yeah. Well, let's start maybe some questions about your background. I think our viewers might be just interested to know, just like your path to the labor movement and through the labor movement. So let's start, where are you from and your family background? Did you have any influences in your family that led you down the path of the labor movement, or that was kind of an independent thing?
Well, I'm from the greatest state in the world. You see the shirt. You know what I mean? So I'm from North Carolina, born and raised there. I come from church background. My father, he's a pastor, a preacher, also military background. He was in the military for about 21 years. So my background is not labor, but it is about helping people. Going to church, day after day, we talk about helping people, bringing people in, showing them a better way of life, working in the community. And by him being my father, being in the military, there was also discipline, structure, also sacrifice. He worked for, he was in the army, and so he gave his life, his career, I should say, for America. And so you're talking about leadership, caring more about people than you care about yourself, wanting more for people. So that's where I kind of got that from. It just so happened that, I started working at UPS and didn't know anything about unions, because coming from the South, it's a right to work state in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no talk about unions. They didn't teach it in high school. There was nobody in my family that was in a union. And so when I came up north, that's when I got introduced to union. Didn't know anything about it. As a part-timer, I just wondered, what was the benefits of being in a union, because no one ever talked to me about it. But then there was one of my coworkers who guided me, took me under her wing. We used to work together and loading and unloading trucks. So I learned more about it. So my 7th year working at UPS, I became a shop steward. And up until around 2013, I was comfortable just being a shop steward, just handling the business of what was going on in the shop, just making sure the company did what it was supposed to do by the contract, making sure our members were protected. But 2013, it was just a bad year as far as UPSers are concerned in the union, so it was a contract and was also our locals officers election. And so by me being a shop steward, I advocated very, very hard for our previous administration because, they was telling us some things about the 2013 contract that, I thought they were telling the truth. So, of course, we fought for them to stay elected. But after the contract, went through, after a lot of people voted it down, I think at the time we had about 18 supplements, regional contracts throughout the UPS landscape that were forced on us. And so once that happened, I kind of took a step back and said, hold on a minute. Now, this is not what I thought unionism was supposed to be. I thought it was supposed to be the will of the people. So if a group of people said they don't want a contract, then why are they getting it? And why are you forcing it on them? We're paying our dues. A part of that comes with our dues is our voice. If we're paying you every week and you take our voice, are you going to give us our dues back? Absolutely not. So that kind of ignited a fire in me because, hey, this just can't be unionism. This is not what we paid for. And then I saw the hurt, the pain, the people feeling disrespected throughout the workforce in our local. And so I wanted to get more involved. And so I went to our leaders, and I never forget this conversation. I went to the office and I asked them. I said, man, what happened? Our members are not happy. You guys lied to us. And this was what they told me. This is when I knew that something had to change. They told me that I need to go back, tell the membership, stop crying, pull their pants up. It is what it is. And I said, what? This cannot be a Teamsters union.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found out that went on not just in our local, but it goes on throughout just the whole landscape of Teamster locals in general. So we started, this 623 Lives Matter movement. We only had 2 hoodies and 12 t-shirts. And this was in 2014 we started doing this. And we talked about how we needed new leadership and how we were going to do things differently. And being African American, that was really, very tough because there has never been an African American leader in our local. In 101 years, there's never been a principal officer who was African American. Mm-hmm. So I knew that was going to be a struggle. So instead of dancing around that, the issue of race, we decided to hit it head on. The name of our slate was 623 Lives Matter, because we knew that we needed to attach, social issues along with what we were trying to do. And we know it was going to make some people uncomfortable. But we had to, instead, like I said, instead of dancing around that problem, that issue, we decided to hit it head on. We campaigned around the issue of just being something brand new, and things needed to change. We can't have leaders to continuously tell us that we have to take what they give us when we don't want it. We want to be educated. We want to be able to participate and not be looked upon as a rebel rouser because we don't want to continue the same system that has benefited everybody else but the worker.
Yep.
And so that's how it started.
Yeah, this reminds me of a friend of mine who worked for the US Postal Service. And he said he was listening to, me and my friends talk and be a little bit like, I don't know, uncritically pro-union, I think. And he was like, I hated my union. The leadership betrayed us. They didn't listen. I had no idea what my rights were. Like, I didn't even know what I was guaranteed, and I had to sift through the contract myself and figure out what I could get. And when I asked them about it, they never advocated for me. And it just totally left a sour taste in his mouth. And he was like, I don't want to be in a union ever again. And I was wondering if you could talk to us about like your take on that and union leadership's responsibility to the rank and file, and what you can do if you're in a union and you're frustrated by leadership or you want reform, and how you kind of took that on.
Well, again, you and this is a multifaceted answer I have to give you.
Well, it's a big question, so that's fair.
So the leadership needs to know their role, but the membership has to know their role as well. What has happened nowadays, you see, is the leaders believe that they are the union, and they act as such when it's really the members' union, but they don't know that. They're not taught that. They're not inspired to feel that. Like, for an example, in our UPS, world, when you force contracts on people, not once, but twice, then what are you telling the members? You're telling them that their voice does not matter. So, like you just said, when they say, well, my union doesn't care, they don't do anything for me, that comes from a place of just distrust. And, I've done everything you asked me to do. I voted, I show up to the meetings, I file grievances, and you still take my voice away from me. Now, as a leader, you have a responsibility. You do. And you have to make sure your members never go through that. Unfortunately, what we're faced with now is that this has continuously happened. And so what I would tell people who feel that way, do what we did. Start a caucus in your local union, get some people who you trust, and get those leaders out of office, because they need to understand it's not their union, it's the membership's union. We in our Constitution, it says it's the members who put me here, and it's the members who we serve. A lot of them have forgotten that because there is no relationship with the membership. A lot of the guys in the Teamsters Union, when you talk about the upper echelon of leadership, they haven't worked in over 30 some years. So they forgot how it was to load a package car, deliver a package, or sort, or whatever the case may be, where they come from. They have forgotten that. And now the membership has suffered because they forgot. But we need to, as leaders, always pump up, always uplift, always inspire, always engage, and just cultivate our membership so that when it comes time to vote, they'll show up. When it comes time to picket, they'll show up. When it comes time to file grievances, they'll show up. Now, what you have now is a membership who is apathetic. They don't want to get involved, and the leaders stay in office. So it keeps going. The cycle keeps going, and the system that should be designed to help the members, really it helps the company, and it helps these leaders who've been in office for so long. They don't want to do the right thing. They don't want to give up their power. So if I was any member out there, I would start now and trying to get new leadership at the local level. So then you build that power on the ground up, and then you can have the change that we need at the top.
Yeah, and you know, Rich, we talk about this a lot. I mean, and this happens in politics and generally, and it's sort of this chicken and egg problem where, you know, so many working class people don't vote in political elections, and they don't vote because they don't trust politicians. They haven't done anything for them. So totally understandable and valid. But at the same time, it's never going to change if working people don't get involved. And of course,
That's it.
There's other ways to get involved besides just voting. But, you know, so it is this, it's a tough kind of chicken or egg problem. But I want to ask you next, you know, since you've been working at UPS a long time, and now as a union leader, you're still intimately, you know, connected with what's going on. How would you say working conditions have changed since you started there? You know, what has changed about the workplace at UPS since you started?
I'm gonna be honest, nothing really has changed. I think it went the other way. The UPS has gotten more dominant. They have done whatever they wanted to do, and they continue to do so because, again, you know, the leaders and the members cannot get on the same page. The working conditions have not gotten better, even through this COVID-19 situation. We had to fight this company to do the right thing and getting our members PPE. We had to do so much fighting, and we try to do it the right way. I mean, I sent the company pictures and videos of the working conditions through COVID. I mean, this stuff shouldn't even been happening anyway, but it definitely cannot happen during what we're going through with this pandemic. You want clean facilities. You want your members to come in and be able to work safe. You know, follow the guidelines. You know, do all the things that you were supposed to do. But again, it's profit over people. We're disposable and not essential. And, you know, again, until all of us get on the same page, fight this company, then the UPS machine will keep running. They're going to keep trampling over us until we make them do so.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No,
go ahead,
I wanted
Ariella.
to ask you about those safety issues, because when I was looking at, you know, workplace surveillance for my segment, there was a bunch of things that they were saying, oh, we need this in the UPS trucks because it's a safety issue. We need to have cameras on our people all the time, right? But you had shown us a clip. Maybe we can roll this, Kale, from the Hill. You were on the Hill in March talking about workplace conditions during COVID, and they were despicable, you know, dirty facilities. Can we roll that, Kale?
The facilities are still not properly cleaned. There's no social distancing like the CDC is asking us to do. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and we're throwing some pictures up on the screen right now so our audience can see that you shared with us. We're looking at, I think, the inside of a truck right now that's grimy. We're looking at, you know, package facility. You tell us what we're looking at here. Litter, trash, dirt. This is a bathroom that's filthy and disgusting. I know you also sent in a video. Of course, we're all being told to wash our hands all the time. Bathroom that the water doesn't even work. Toilets hanging off the wall. Just talk specifically about the sort of conditions that your members and you are facing.
When you have the toilet hanging on the ground and no running water and dirt everywhere and trash everywhere, especially when the CDC has asked constantly to make sure these things aren't happening, it's a slap in the worker face. We're already putting our life on the line because we have families too. And then when you come to work and the facility is like this, it's not healthy, and you're anxious and you're concerned. And our members are very, 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 you know, they're anxious and they feel like they're disposable and not essential.
Yeah, have things changed since March?
They've gotten better, but I'm gonna tell you something, and I may get in trouble for it, but it's all right. We really didn't start to see a change until some of the UPS upper management started getting COVID. Once they started getting COVID, then things started, okay, well, we may need to do some things. And this is the thing, and this is just in everyday life. You can talk about something, or this shouldn't happen. We gonna do it this way, but until it knocks at your door, until it's in your house, then you really don't care. But when it happens to you, then you want to make a change, and that's what happened. That's what happened here.
Yeah, and drivers had died of COVID, and UPS is making money hand over fist right now because you can't go in the store. People rely on this, and people can cheer essential workers all they want, but if they're not aware of how to advocate for working conditions, hazard pay, things that actually improve people's lives and safety, the cheers aren't worth that much. I also wanted to ask you about the local 623 coronavirus tracker. You had said, so here's a clip from the website where you've got numbers for, it looks like, each facility and in the local, and people can keep track of positive cases. In March, when you were on the Hill, you were talking about how management wouldn't tell you COVID cases and said it was a HIPAA violation. Could we roll that clip as well, Cale?
We on the front line. We putting our life on the line. The CEO of this company is not putting his life on the line. It's the members. So, and their lives have changed because now they're very, very nervous. I mean, there's a lot of rumors going on in our facilities now about certain things going on as far as this, does any member have it? What's going on? And I get the whole HIPAA thing, I do. But when it comes to stuff like this, we should know what's going on. If a member is being quarantined, if it's a possibility they do have it, then the company needs to reach out to us and let us know, hey, listen, we have a situation here. We may need to investigate it. Let your members know so we can calm their nerves, because you don't want to panic. You don't want to uproar. And when you withhold information, you're going to create that panic. And we don't want that right now.
So they don't have, issues with violating worker privacy when they're putting cameras in your trucks, right? Or tracking every single move you make. But if it comes to saying, a member, a worker in this facility, don't have to name them, has COVID, they wouldn't tell you?
They still don't tell us the actual person, which is fine, but we had to go through so many changes to get this information. I mean, at one point, they wouldn't tell me anything. We had to keep pushing and pushing, file grievances until now they tell me, hey, Hooker, we have, a person on the night sort at Oregon Avenue, which is one of our buildings, in the city. Or they would tell me, hey, we have 2 cases that just popped up on this date working on the Twilight ramp. But we had to go through so much just to get that out of them. And like you said, they can put cameras in the truck, and they got all these devices that tells them when you got your seatbelt off and how many times you back the car up and all this other kind of stuff. But they won't give us what we need to just calm our members' nerves, give them some sort of peace of mind during this pandemic. That's all we want. That's all we ever wanted. These people are already working longer hours, putting their life on the line. Just give them some peace, just a little bit of peace.
So who created the coronavirus tracker at your local?
So myself and our director of operations, Dino Guastalla, we work together, and we put every time the labor department from the company contacts me with a case, I get it and I let our e-board know. Then I will also let our membership know, because we have a Facebook page called 623 Lives Matter, and we also have the locals Facebook page. So whatever information we get, we put it on the website. We track each case so members will know, hey man, on this date, we had 3 new cases. I wish we could give them more as far as the actual area. So instead of just saying the night sort at the airport building had 2 cases, I would like to be able to tell them, hey, the small sort area on the twilight shift had 3 new cases on this date.
Mm-hmm.
That's the information that we want. But again, UPS is so afraid of creating a panic. They won't let me know that, because I even had reached out to another local, and I asked them how they were doing it, and they told me, hey, they let us know the area and everything. So I said, okay, cool. I finally got the company. There's no way they could get out of this. So I present the information to the company, and they tell me, well, that facility is so massive, no one would even know who it is because there's so many people in that area. And I'm like, what? But this is the company we're dealing with. This is who they are.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I want to go back actually to, you touched a little bit on your union elections, but I want to go back to it. So the first time you ran, you lost by, what was it, 27?
37 votes.
Yeah. Which
but you know what, man? I'm glad we lost. I'm actually excited that we did, because the stuff that we did not do during that election, as far as raising campaign funds and creating, like a website to give our members some information about us. What we really did was just focus a lot on the grassroots organizing part. But Paul and Ariel, there's more to it than that. You do have to have funds. You do have to have, a lot more pieces to connect and get you over the top. So at that time, it was 3 slates running, and we lost by 37 slate votes. But when you calculate the votes from the opposing slate from the previous administration, if you look at that number was greater than the number they got. But because of how the votes fell, they were able to get back in office, which lets me know that even though they won, the members still wanted to change.
Right.
Right. So what we did was we didn't stop. We did not stop. We lost by 37 votes, took it on the chin, shed a little tear, got back up on the horse, and we kept riding. So what we did was we started, raising some campaign funds. We got, more and more aggressive in our approach. We got a slate website that shows what we plan on doing if we got elected, as far as shop stewards tools, how to file a grievance, things like that. But we also changed the bylaws in our local, because before this 2018, well, even 2013 and 2018, we did not know what was going on in our contract. I mean, we just didn't know. The leaders would go to the table, they didn't tell us anything. And then when they did tell us something and we didn't like it, they had no explanation for what happened. Like, what's going on here? Especially when I vote the contract down, and then you tell me, oh, who cares? And then I don't know what's going on. So you say, you know what we did? So after we lost, we changed the bylaws in our local. So now, whenever there's a contract being negotiated, we have to have rank and file members along with the e-board to negotiate that contract. So there's no more, well, you don't know what's going on. We don't know what's happening, because we organized our campaign around transparency, education, getting our members more involved, and we wanted to keep pushing it out there. So one of the things I found out is that the more transparent you are, you start to gain people trust. And we had to gain a lot of people trust, because for the last 16, almost 20 years, we've had the same leadership or some sort of the same people that made it up. And so they built these relationships with our members. They didn't know us. They knew us, but it was like, well, even though Hooker, you guys are saying the right thing, but you have no experience. We just don't know, And then it was the whole race thing. That was a big issue for a lot of people. So we had to overtake that. So what we try to do is take everything negatively that people will use against us to turn it to a positive. For an example, there's a stereotype that, Black people, all they care about is money and cars. So one of the first things we did when we got elected was, hey, I'm going to take a pay cut and I don't want the car. So we took that away from them. So you can't use that now. Well, Hooker, you don't have the experience to negotiate contracts, whatever. Well, listen, the people that have been here forever, what did they do for you? You voted no, and they gave you the contract anyway. So what do you got to lose? So now we just started focusing on what we could do better communication. We already proved that to you because there's a website that shows you how to file grievances, how, when the meetings is going to be. We just kept being at the gates constantly, trying to get our people involved. So another thing they was concerned about was, was I going to spend all the money, which is another stereotype. Black people don't know how to manage money. So each one of our meetings, the money keeps growing. It keeps growing, it keeps growing. So now they can't use that against us. So we try to focus on taking everything that people had against us away from them and show them that we're going to do the job, which we are, and that now you can start worrying about what we're not going to do, and let's focus on fighting the company. Let's focus on getting the right leadership in the international level. Let's focus on picketing and organizing and grievance procedure. And, let's focus on that. Let's not focus on the color of the leader. Let's not focus on, the money and all this. Let's focus on fighting the company.
Right. I know how you do, Richard. You get the box seats at the Vikings games and the Duke games with the Union dudes. Right. So it's hard to believe, but it's been a little bit over a year since you've won the election. And so, I think our viewers would be interested to hear, what it's like to be in office, that transition. Like, what are some of the challenges you face going from a rank and filer, shop steward to, elected leader?
It's, the only part that I hate about this job, and Paul, you know what I'm going to say.
Right, I know.
It's the politics of it, dude. I cannot stand the politics of the job. And even though I know it's a necessary part of the job, but as a rank and file member, I was naive. I didn't really know that how politics play a part in some of the decision makings that I even have to make. Because even now, I'm forced to make a decision to go against my morality, my spirituality, integrity, and character to vote for someone who I just can't vote for. But what's to say if I don't, then my members are going to suffer. And that's the kind of decisions that I don't want to make. But I'm forced to make those decisions because I don't want my people to be left out because of knowing the candidates that we have running and knowing, their past history and what they've done to our union. We're forced to make these decisions, but how is it going to play out for my members? Because I know this person is not going to do what he says he's going to do, and they have shown this through years and years and years. It's the politic part of the job. I've been fighting the company for a long, long time. That came natural. I've always cared about people from growing up. That's just part of who I am. I try to do the right thing all the time, no matter if it's political or not. So I try to keep my spirituality, my morality, my integrity and character to make it line up with where I'm trying to take the local to. You know what I mean? Because some of my members, they always bust on me a lot of times. Because I never forget when we won the election, they was telling me that we was going to have a choir at the Union Hall. There's going to be singing hymns.
I mean, nothing wrong with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
wait, what were they going to sing though? You gotta pick gotta pick the right song.
You gotta pick the right. Oh, you gotta pick the right hymn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So but I just try to make sure that everything I am internally, it comes out in the job that I try to do for the membership. I don't ever want them to question where I'm trying to take the local. And that's part of my upbringing. Coming from a church background. To me, the church and the union are basically supposed to do the same thing, just on two different spectrums. The church is supposed to organize more people, show them a better way of life. Same thing as a union, organize, show the non-union and the union a better way of life. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But, and I just try to entangle both of them, if that's a word. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the way that you tackled issues of racism when you were running. And you should have.
Y'all hitting hard tonight, man. Y'all hitting hard.
And I'll add also, oh, sorry.
If it helps, we'll sing you a hymn after.
I'm gonna need it.
And
I come from a long line of gospel singers. I have a lot. My family's from Virginia. There's a lot of them in there. So me and Paul can work on something.
Harmony.
Okay.
But to follow up, if I could, Dino, the director of operations, told me an interesting story, in terms of when you're in office, how to deal with this. And he was saying, on a shop steward's call, long story short, one of these workers that essentially did not like you because you were black, did not want to vote for you, was really dead set against you. But then, you've been in leadership a while, and they spoke up on the call and they said, I didn't like Richard, but, he's turned this union around. I have so much respect for him, and to me, that's huge because there's a lot of discussion about, how do we break down racism among people? And, more and more, I think you can try to lecture someone. You can try to lecture a white person as much as possible. But what's so interesting about a union is it provides a space for, building trust. And if you take care of that person's interests, you might, not every time, but you might be able to start moving like that shop steward. I have a feeling that a year of your leadership, he probably has slightly less racist views, at least today than a year ago.
Less.
Right.
America in general was founded on racism. Let's just be truthful. It was founded on race. It's just what it is. So when we ran the first time in 2016, and I'll never forget this. I had a lady who I was a shop steward over. She called me and said, "Hey, Hooker, I just want to know if you get elected." Now, this was in 2016. If you get elected, are you going to fight for white people like you do black people? Man, that hurt. Because this was a member who job I've saved, fought for, make sure she got her grievances paid out. And she was a white member. But for her to ask me that after all I've done for her, man, it hurt. And it bothered me. And that's when I knew that we were going to lose the election the first time, because race was such a just big issue. And then when you talk about the name of our slate, 6-2D Lives Matter, man, a lot of people were not happy. And that probably cost us a lot of votes because they just cannot get over that race barrier. Even though our local membership is 70% black and brown people. But we don't vote. And that's a problem. Just in general. But race is not just in local 623. It's just and from what I see, especially in a leadership position, it's just in the Teamsters in general. If you look at the representation of the international leadership, we only have one black male, one woman. But when you look at the workers, man, you're talking about 2/3 to 7% of the Teamsters are black and brown people. But it's not reflective in our leadership. So what does that tell you? There's a big problem. Now, they don't want to address it, but it is a problem. And even in our current situation, when we're talking about, this international election this year, we have both slates are running. They're talking about diversity because they see what's going on in our country. Everything's changing. We have our first African American vice president and female. And we also have, I believe, one of the Joint Chiefs or one of the Secretaries of Defense. I believe they're black. So all these things are changing, and I think the Teamsters want to change with it, but they don't know how to. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. And when you look at what's happening, the same system, and I'll just say this. The same system that keeps these guys in office on the international level was not designed for someone like me to get up to that level.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? It's not, because you have to go through so many changes. They're like, for example, in our joint council, I think there's only 3 African-American principal officers, but we have over 100,000 members in our PA conference.
Mm-hmm.
But we only got 3 African-American principal officers. And one of them is a woman. There's only one African-American. And when you talk about some of the things that go on in the international level, I don't think that if a African-American leader were to do some of the things that our white counterparts have done as far as leadership,
Mm-hmm.
we would not be given a chance like some of these guys are given a chance now.
Mm-hmm.
If I was negotiating the 2013 contract or the 2018 contract, I can guarantee you right now, live on this show, that they would probably try to kick me out of the Teamsters Union.
Mm-hmm.
But we have someone who doesn't look like me, who's done these things, and worse, but they're telling us that we got to vote for them.
You see, historically, it's always been the case that people use race and racism to make people, to divide people from acting solidaristically in their own interests. Because right now you have a time where, workers are being put through the ringer in jobs that are already incredibly physically demanding. Like, your job is very, very hard physically. Most people's jobs in your union are extremely difficult physically. They take a huge toll. And then you add the pandemic on top of it, and your interests are the same, right? What you're fighting against at work is the same conditions, but race can be used to just split people up. That woman saying, oh, are you going to fight for white people? What, are you going to write a separate contract for white people? Like, your fight is the same fight. Your contract is the same contract, but it's so embedded in people's heads, and it makes, what you're doing all the more important, I think.
Right.
I appreciate that.
And to look at the national level, I mean, these next few years are going to be very important. I mean, for the labor movement, for the country, for the Teamsters. What do you think should be like the priorities for the Teamsters in the next few years, just at the national level in general? What?
Ooh, man.
Small question.
This year, we have an important election coming up for new international presidency. General President Hoffa's retiring, and so we're going to have a new leadership. And what I'm hoping is that people just vote. I wish we had some better people to choose from. And I'm not trying to knock anybody, but to me, I was reading a quote earlier that kind of really makes this thing sting a little bit. It was saying that that you shouldn't go to the people that harm. You shouldn't go to the feet of the people that put you in the situation that you're currently in. And we are facing that right now as Teamsters. We are forced to vote for people who are the sole responsible entity and people on why we are in the situation we're in. You took our votes away. You bully us. You intimidate us. The company does what they want to do. And now we have to try to vote for you. How do we do that? But I will say this. Outside of the Teamsters, what we need to do is every local, every union, we need to come together and just educate each other on the importance of voting and getting our members involved. Because I would hate for whoever the next Teamster president is to go to Joe Biden or to someone and say, hey, my members need this. And then that elected governmental official look at the voting and say, well, I hear what you're saying, but your members are not speaking the same language because they didn't vote. That's my biggest thing. I hope throughout these next 2-3 years that whoever wins this election really will put something in place where we educate and engage our members constantly on their rights, not just contractual rights, but their rights as just being union members, how to file a grievance, what to do when there's a picket, come out to the union meetings, do some things that'll get them more involved. Show them that America's greatest resource is the workers. It's not anything else. I mean, look what just happened this over this past 2 years. If it wasn't for the workers through this COVID-19 situation, America would be in shambles right now. Everybody knows. But I think our leaders, they have to make sure that our members understand that they are the sole reason why, number one, America's still running. Number two, they're the sole reason why the leadership is, in the position that they are. But we have to make sure that our members understand that, inspire them to want to be engaged. We can't bully them and intimidate them and force contracts on them and, berate them because they don't agree with you politically. No, that's not how you do this thing. We need to all come together and fight together against these companies. I mean, look what's going on down here in Bessemer and in the land of Dixon.
Right.
Right to work state. These guys are coming together to try to fight against a huge, major corporation. Now, what about the union members? What are we going to do? Now it's our time to respond. What are we going to do? How are we going to attack these anti-labor people and this anti-labor legislation? What are we going to do? What are we going to do when our labor leaders don't do what they're supposed to do? Are we just going to say, oh, well, I told you? No, we got to stand up like these guys doing down here. We got to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We got to, organize a bus boycott, whatever we got to do, like this movement is down here. We got to translate that into what we need to do as far as our unions. We have to.
Yeah, that's right. And to go back, to Philly, you talk a lot about, the community of labor, as you call it, that we've built in Philly, or we're trying to build. I mean, could you expand more on that? I mean, what does that mean to you, this community of labor?
Well, I'm going to tell you how that started, Paul, and you probably already know this. So when we ran the first time, right, in 2016, one of our shop stewards told me, he said, Hooker, you guys are not going to win against the previous administration with just 7 people. And, I didn't quite understand what he was talking about. But then when I started thinking about it, I knew he was just talking about the people in the local. But what I wanted to do is expand that and get everybody in Philadelphia involved in just everything that goes on when it comes to labor in our city. When you have a group like what we did in our local, how about reaching out to a Paul Prescott or a Dino or just everybody to come on out and just, fight the company. I mean, you were there,
right.
When we had that contract campaign.
I think that's how we met, right?
Right, exactly.
Right.
and when that the division manager came out there started talking all that noise, it wasn't just me.
Right.
It wasn't just Teamsters. It was teachers. It was Teamsters. It was IIC workers. It was, just all kind of people. So he wasn't just fighting me or just talking noise at me. He had everybody else that he had to deal with, and that was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing there. And that's what I mean by the community of labor, what we're trying to do. We have to build that everywhere in every city, every state. We have to build that because all of us are fighting the same battle. I mean, the PFT, they're trying to put window fans in the windows, and it's like negative 10 degrees outside.
Right.
Yeah, that is a fan that will freeze, right? The wind turbines are fine, but we can't be putting that in a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And they want our kids to come to school in this.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know solidarity, of course, like that is the cliche of all cliches, but like it really is the basis of how we win. It's not just like a warm, fuzzy moral thing. I mean, it kind of is. It is morally right, but also, like we really just can't win without solidarity. Like
you can't.
It's a fact.
That's one of the nice, lessons. I didn't grow up going to church as often as my grandma would have liked, but when I was with her, I did have to go to church. And you see on the ground what solidarity can look like in those places. When they say this person is struggling, this person is suffering, that's shared by everybody.
Right.
Everybody feels that. You have a responsibility to your community. You know, they follow the teachings of Jesus, protecting and working for the sick and poor, right? Not like, you know, fake Christianity profiteering. And I think drawing that into the left is really important because people want that to be renewed. Even if they're not religious, they want that renewed sense of community, of responsibility, of shouldering the burden together. And we live in a country that just, you know, constantly tells you you're in this alone. It's like what you said leadership told you to say, just suck it up. You don't like the contract, suck it up. You know, you deal with it. You deal with it by yourself. Even though the whole basis of that process is collective action.
Exactly.
And it cannot be undermined. Like, it is what makes us human beings. We wouldn't survive without each other. It might be warm and fuzzy, but that's good. It's warm and fuzzy because, like, the chemicals that make you feel love are good, you know? We need more of that stuff. On that note, which, you know, maybe it's because it was Valentine's Day. I'm getting all sappy.
Oh.
But I wanted to talk to you about, you know, union or the labor community in Philly in general getting involved in fights outside of just labor, like fighting for local issues or highlighting different policies. Paul had said you were fighting locally for Medicare for all. Can you talk about getting involved outside of the workplace?
Oh, man, listen, I got to tell you, one of the main reasons why this Medicare for all, I'm telling you, whatever we got to do to get this thing done, it has to. And I got to tell you this story. I don't know if I got time, but I got to tell you this.
You got time.
Yeah.
So round last year when we first got elected, right, we had one of our members, she has lupus. And that is a really hard thing to me because my mom passed away from lupus when I was 5 years old. So she has lupus and she got fired. She got terminated. And when she got terminated, she lost all of her medical benefits. Now, she was on the list to get a kidney because I don't know if you guys familiar with the lupus disease. It just tears your internal organs up. And it was really killing her kidney. She was on the list to get a new one so she could continue to live, you know, in somewhat of a normal way. She lost the benefits though. So when it came time for her to get that kidney, she couldn't get it. She couldn't get it because the company had control of her medical benefits, which means in this instance, they had control where she lives or dies. Man, that bothered me so bad. And it still bothers me now because even though she's back to work and she's doing a lot better, but man, just thinking about that, why would we give a company like UPS that kind of power? UPS is one of the worst companies. I'm telling you, they can change the narrative and they'll tell you, man, these guys make the most money. They do this, they do that. But there is a dark side to UPS that people just do not know. And if it ever gets out, man, UPS will be in trouble. They would really be in trouble because they are one of the most monstrous, demeaning, harassing, intimidating companies that you can ever work for. And they just don't care. And when they know they have you, like they had one of my members, she was at their mercy. I had to fight with them to put her back to work. It took me about 2 months, 3 months to get her back to work. And it wouldn't even have to be that way, but it's just who they are. It's just who they are.
No, that cuts to why people are fighting it, because they do want to be able to control whether you live or die. And they don't want it to be a right, even though, you know, we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They want it to be another way to blackmail you into breaking your body for them to profit off of.
Exactly. And whatever we got to do. I mean, I know some of the arguments, oh, they're going to raise your taxes, they're going to do this. Again, I remember we talked about this earlier. It's a whole lot different when it's not in your house. It's a whole lot
Right.
different when you would have to sit there. I'm telling you, if it was one of these people who talk, oh, my taxes, let it be their wife. Let it be them. And see how fast they change. I'm telling you, that was one of the worst experiences I had in my first couple of months on the job, because UPS had her life in their hand and they didn't care. Man, they did not care. It could have been resolved easily.
Right. Yeah. And, this, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I mean, taxes, co-pays, deductibles, I mean, shit, it's still money coming out of your pocket, whatever you want to call it, it's still money. So, and maybe this will be our final question, but this, talking about Medicare for all, how to get it. I mean, this kind of immediately puts us into the question of politics. And I know, Richard, you claim you hate politics. I still don't believe you do.
What?
I mean, you're on Jacobin after all.
What?
I think we just have different definitions of politics.
Yeah, I think
like fighting for Medicare for all is politics. You know?
Yeah, I get that, but I just hate this whole. Well, you know what I hate.
Right. So my question is, unions can't really avoid politics, and I'm not just talking about internal union politics, but like legislative politics. So, what are your thoughts? How should unions approach electoral politics? Like, do you think, should unions be running more, union members as candidates, true labor candidates? What kind of candidates should unions be supporting? Just how should labor approach electoral politics to get better outcomes for working people?
Well, I think first what we need to do, we need to educate our members on the candidates that are running, number one, and how will they benefit what we want as union members. I think that's what it starts with education. We have to let our members know what each candidate stands for and what they're going to do for us. And then next, we need to hold them accountable. We need to hold them accountable for what they are promising our members. Again, we need to educate our members on that as well. But I would like to see, I wish we got to get out of this Republican Democrat stuff and have a workers' party. I think we need to have people who are for the workers, by the workers, with the workers, not just in name, not just in name only, but people who came up through the ranks, worked their way to get there. I would love to see more of those people being involved in politics, because it's easy to talk about it if you haven't lived through it. I would trust someone who had to deal with a bully boss, fight his way up, lead some pickets, lead some strikes. That's the kind of person I want to vote for when it comes to federal government, state government, city government, because I know they know the struggle. They know the struggle of getting up 4 o'clock in the morning, not coming back home till 4 o'clock at night because you had to do 12-hour shift. You had to deal with a boss who didn't care. You're fighting for people's rights. That's the kind of person who I would like to make decisions for me and my family, because that's where me and my family have come from. We come from that. We're getting up 4 o'clock in the morning, not coming home till 4 o'clock at night, dealing with a crazy boss and all this other kind of stuff. I would like to see more of those people in politics, because I know I would be able to have that relationship, a representation of a relationship, because they've been through the same things I've been through. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would love to see those kind of people.
So I get what I'm hearing, I think, is Richard Hooker, president 2024.
Oh, no.
That's what I'm hearing. But
that is a much better for representation than why doesn't Oprah run for president? Maybe Oprah was working class at one point in her life, years and years before she had billions of dollars. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I want to see. Represent people who had blue collar, difficult jobs.
Exactly. And to piggyback, I want to piggyback on something you said about your grandmother. Mm-hmm. Now, to go back and check this out. I'm gonna drop something on you. If you go back, Moses and his brother Aaron, they were the first 2 union organizers. And Egypt was the representation of the company. And look at how they had to organize them guys and get them out. It's the same thing. I'm telling y'all, man. The church and the union are the same. I'm telling y'all, man.
Well, I'm gonna make my grandma watch this because she usually just watches like the gospel channel, but
Right.
I think she'll like this episode. She's a union. Yeah. She's union strong. She's a nurse, pediatric nurse, and she told me that there might have been fights over if the Black nurses were smart enough to perform different things in the hospital, but there was no race on the picket line. She said out there, everybody was fighting for the same thing.
And you know what? And that's the part of politics I wish that was more prevalent. You know what I mean? Listen, I know I don't agree. Like right now in the Teamsters, man, I do not agree with what's going on when it comes to this international election, and I'm just not going to. No matter what people say or do, I just have a hard time voting for someone who has been responsible for a lot of our issues. You're going to have to try to make me understand that. I just can't do it. But when it comes time to fight the company, go on strike, picket, I'm there. I'm there. Yep. I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And I can attest. I mean, I feel like I could call Richard out 3 a.m.
I'm going to be there.
There's 2 workers on a picket, and he'll be there.
I'm gonna be the 3rd one on the picket.
Right. All right. Yeah. This is great, but I think unfortunately we might have to end it there. But this was so great talking to you, Richard.
Thanks so much for coming on. Thank you. We got to let you get back to your vacation.
Oh, that's all good. Hey, I've been working since I got here. It's all right.
Right. But all right, brother. Thanks so much for coming on. I'll see you on a picket soon, probably though. So.
Oh yeah, speaking of that, we're going to have 2 coming up real soon. I'll tell you more about them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We can announce it on the show. I'm sure there might be some Philly audience members that would love to help out.
Awesome. I love it already.
All right. Thanks, Richard.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you, guys.